Hello and welcome back to another episode of Change Wired podcast. My name is Angela Ashurina. I'm your host. I'm your coach, partner in change and personal and collective transformation. And on this podcast, we are passionate and dedicated to the process of growth, of change, of creating more positive impact and just building the life we want. And today, guys, I'm very excited to talk about practical strategies from the book, Dealing with Feeling, Harnessing the Power of Your Emotions to Create the Life You Want. Today, I'm very excited to share with you strategies from the book that will help you to shape and form and change your feelings in a way that helps you to move towards your goals. And by the end of this podcast, you're going to have at least 6 strategies. Maybe in the middle of the podcast, I'll remember something else that I used in my coaching practice and learned through my coaching certifications as well. But today, by the end of this podcast, you're going to have very practical, very simple, down-to-earth strategies that you can start applying today. Not to get it perfect. Sometimes we think, well, I'm going to get this tool, and from now on, because I know this tool, I'm just going to be perfect at using it. And all of a sudden, I'm going to become this emotional master. And emotions are not going to be something that hold me back, and I'm not going to be struggling with my emotional responses. But that's not the case. That's not how growth, mastery, self-improvement, getting better works. It's like going to the gym. If you haven't gone for a while, you don't expect yourself to become an athlete just because you stepped onto the gym floor. You expect yourself to get better. With every time you get in there, you have the opportunity to work on things, not getting results as soon as you get on that floor. So any practice, anything that we are working on in life, it takes time to get better. A simple example from my personal cooking life. I got this vertical egg omelette maker, and I tried it and I followed somewhat instructions, and it didn't really come out as on videos online. Of this perfect vertically shaped egg omelette thing. And it didn't come out like that for 3-4 times. And then on the 5th time, it got almost perfect. And it's getting better ever since. So the purpose of this example is to maybe help you remember that almost everything you are good and great at and you know how to do, at some point you didn't know that, and probably you didn't get it for most things from attempt number 1. And so to sum up this intro, don't expect yourself to get better just because you know the things. Even the author of the book Dealing with Feeling, Mark Brackett, who is also someone who oversees Center of Emotional Intelligence in the US, even he still has moments when he's not proud of his emotional responses. So it's not the goal is to get it perfect. The goal is to get better and have less of those moments when you regret how you dealt with your feeling, and create more of those moments when you're proud of how you dealt with them. So let's jump in. The first method, the first tool I want to share with you comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective, if not the most effective kind of therapies that help people to rewire their thinking and their behavioral patterns, which allow them to then change their life. So this is one of the simplest, most applicable. I use this tool myself and with my clients so often that it sometimes feels like, well, this is the answer to any form of self-sabotage. So what is it? It's restructuring, reconstructing your own thoughts in a way that helps you to achieve your goals. And it has 4 parts. And it's applied when, for example, somebody gave you a negative comment, whether at work or in life, or you got the result that frustrated you. Maybe you tried a recipe. Maybe you tried public speaking. Maybe you tried a different kind of feedback. Maybe you tried different kind of analysis for your client and then flopped. Right? So what do you do in those situations when, it's not less than positive? First, you might start thinking to yourself, things like, I'm not good at it. Why have I thought this in the first place? I'm never going to get good at it. I'm just going to stick to what I know, right? Kind of keeping yourself in the stuck zone, thinking that you're just not capable. So first catch this thought and then ask yourself, do I have evidence to think that I'm just not capable and I just can't get better and I'm worthless and I'm hopeless? Do you have the evidence for that? Not for the fact that the thing didn't work out, but for the fact that you are hopeless in that thing and you can't improve. Do you have any evidence? So this is step number 1, evidence. Step number 2, well, maybe there is some evidence this thing didn't work out, but is it universal truth? If you were to ask every single person about this fact that just happened, will they tell you that you are hopeless? If nothing else, is it universally true? So universally true, or that comment, or that feedback, it's one person's opinion. So is it universal truth to support now your thought that you're hopeless? Number 3, you ask yourself, hurting or helping, right? Step number 1, evidence. Number 2, is it universal? Number 3, hurting or helping. Is the thought hurting or helping me? Right now, how does it make you feel? Is it hurting your notion of self-worth, capability, ability, something that will help you grow? Is it hurting you or helping you? And number 4, you ask yourself, what is a more helpful way to think about this thing that will help me to achieve my goals? So, this piece of analysis or this feedback or that omelet flopped, but is it helpful for you to think that you are hopeless now from now on and never should try cooking again, for example? Or is it more helpful to think, I just tried it. I've never actually done things like that, or I didn't have enough repetitions and opportunity to practice. And I know that with practice, just like with a bunch of other things that I tried in my life, you get better. And so this is just one of the reps. And instead, how I'll think about how can I get better? I get some better feedback, more practice opportunities, whatever that is. But the fact is, what is a better way to think about this in a helpful way that's going to keep you moving forward towards achieving your goals, right? So what is a more helpful way to think about that? Let's sum this part up. So the message to reconstruct your unhelpful thinking patterns that might be stopping and delaying your growth and development. Number 1, evidence. What is the evidence of my unhelpful thinking? What in actual reality, objective, what is the evidence to support it? Number 2, is it universal? If I were to ask each person, will each person tell me the same? Is it universal? This unhelpful thought. Number 3, is this way of thinking hurting or helping me right now and moving forward? Is it hurting or helping? And number 4, what is a more helpful way to think about this that will help me to achieve my goals moving forward? So if you just master this, and by mastering, I mean get better with more repetitions, if whenever you catch yourself thinking the thought that makes you feel disempowered, just apply this. And with practice, guys, you'll get very close to mastering your negative thinking to a point that it will never stop you in your tracks. It might still come to you, but you know how to deal with it. Let's get into other methods of handling your thoughts, unhelpful thoughts that often lead to unhelpful emotions. Different situations, and these tools apply better to different kinds of scenarios. Next one, spatial distance. That can be applied when you're in a situation and someone is giving you a hard time or constructive feedback that you deserve, but you start feeling that your emotional response is coming up and not helping you to move through it, to work through it. You can imagine yourself, literally, the power of your imagination just so undervalued. When you're in this situation, in this difficult conversation, and you start noticing that your emotional response is not getting the best out of situation and out of you, imagine yourself floating above this whole situation and kind of looking from above on this whole situation, this scenario, like watching a movie on a screen. Just project it on an imaginary screen and observe. And you'll notice how your emotional response starts becoming less emotional. And because of that, you'll be able to think more logically and more in a more balanced way. And because of that, you will have the opportunity to turn this thing around and actually in the situation of this constructive feedback, for example, instead of getting defensive, getting mad or, rambling something that is not helpful, you stop yourself, you lean into that, and you ask some good questions like, okay, I hear you. So what can I do to get better at that? So spatial distance. The next one, so this is tool number 3, temporal distance. You can also think about the same situation after the situation, or something you reacted and you regret it, or something happened at work that you're like, this wasn't a good situation. And it's hard to deal with that because, there are people are still there at your work or in your family, if that's something personal. Sometimes it feels like so heavy and so big that it's overwhelming you and it's hard to constructively deal with that. So another tool to apply in this situation is to ask yourself, in a week, well, maybe a week is too little time, in a month from now, in a year from now, will this be important? Maybe you had a fight with your spouse or with your kid or with your partner or with your boss or with your coworker, and your ego is getting in the way of constructively resolving this situation. So ask yourself, like, what is more important here? A year from now, how would I love to remember this moment? How would I handle it a year from now? Like, looking back, what would be the most important thing I'd think about? Is it somehow figuring out how to preserve this relationship despite the immediate perceived loss, maybe loss of face, loss of, status or some perk at work or something personal at home? Year from now, what choice would I be more proud of? So that is what temporal distancing is. The fourth tool is distancing self-talk. And you can see the pattern here, distancing, because distancing helps us to get ourselves out of the situation almost and see it again from above, from different point in time, from a different person's perspective, to think, observe from outside, which in research and studies shows consistently helps us to get less emotional and more balanced in our decisions and interactions and be more successful at creating the conditions, making the decisions, taking the actions that lead us towards better outcome overall. So the next one is self-distancing talk. That is when, my personal example right now, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the choices, options, and directions in my life. And so the example of distancing self-talk would be asking myself, Angela, if you were your friend, if you were someone to step into your shoes like an alien stepping into your life and seeing everything for the first time, what would that alien do? or if you were your friend, what advice would you give to yourself in this situation? And surprisingly, there is this pattern of human thinking and behavior. We give other people better advice than we give advice to ourselves. And so the trick that psychologists figured out is create different frame of reference, asking yourself questions like, what would I advise my friend to do in this situation? If I were an alien stepping into this body, into this life right now, how would I act based on all the evidence, without all the sunk cost fallacies and all the previous experience and past? Just right now, what would I do? And thinking about the future that I want to create. So that is distancing self-talk. Tool number 5 is reappraisal, or changing the way we think about things to create more favorable decisions, actions, and outcomes. Another example from my personal life right now. So I did some speaking lately, and while analyzing my experience and my delivery and my performance, I realized I wasn't satisfied with my progress of getting better. But instead of thinking I'm incapable or somehow flawed or I can't learn effectively or I can't improve, I actually thought to myself, you know what? I've actually haven't given myself enough practice to be able to improve and judge my ability to get better. So how about I focus, instead of giving myself more practice opportunities, instead of having very few performance opportunities and then judge myself harshly on those. And that is a more helpful way to think about the situation, because thinking that I'm not capable, not going to move me anywhere I want to go, but thinking that, I need to give myself more practice opportunities and I know I can improve. And that is all the research on practice and mastering, getting better tells us. So that is a more helpful way of thinking. And I can choose either. And sometimes you just don't realize that you have a choice of how to think about the situation in order to create better outcomes in your future. So that is reappraisal, or choosing to think about things in your life in a more helpful way to achieve your goals. And then last but not least, to be honest, I haven't used it quite as often these days, but that is not because it's less effective. It's because I think I need to use more of it. Visualization. We often fall into a pattern of visualizing things in a negative way. Like, what if this doesn't work out? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they ask me the wrong question, or, the difficult question? What if this person says this and that? What if I'm going to get late or either restrict? Like, we visualize so much negative stuff and then start feeling anxious and stressed, and that often decreases our chances to perform really, really well, whether you're speaking, presenting, delivering something, or something else. But if we choose to visualize, like many professional athletes do, situation the way you want it to go, like that perfect shot on a golf course or on a tennis court, athletes visualize their shots, and also athletes who do different stunts, like in snowboarding or all kinds of sports where you perform this crazy stuff that is so cool to watch, or skateboarding. All of these athletes visualize so actively the situation the way they want it to go, to condition their nervous system to perform certain actions when they're in the actual situation. And not only that decreases nerves that get in the way of great performance. All that to say, if you are about to speak on stage or present, start visualizing the situation the way you want it to go, how you are composed, how you presenting everything super well, how everyone is delighted and clapping and ask you the questions and you answer them with ease. And again, this calm confidence. Visualize that. The author of the book Dealing with Feeling, Mark Brackett, used it when he needed to do all these interviews for the book before this one, and it was getting out of COVID, and so he didn't have practice just seeing other people, leave alone being on TV and being interviewed. So he was kind of anxious and maybe even stressed. But then he started using visualization in his mind's eye, being really great on camera, answering the questions, being that fun, witty, interactive speaker and person. And when he was in those actual situations, that's exactly how it went, because he conditioned himself to feel good and confident in those situations by playing those situations in his mind, like movies. Again, athletes use it, all kinds of performers use it, high performance in business arena use it. So use it as well. And it's a reminder to myself to use more visualization in the positive, in a helpful kind of way, versus doom and gloom scenarios that make us not feel good and makes us choke under pressure and in the situation of performance versus doing our best. To sum up the whole episode, first, we started with one tool from a cognitive behavioral therapy, 4-step tool to help you reconstruct in a more helpful way your thinking, especially unhelpful thinking after the situations where you didn't perform that well, and we start thinking, oh, I'm worthless, etc. So that was tool number 1, and it consisted of 4 steps. A, evidence. Is there real evidence in life? B, is it universal evidence? C, is my way of thinking helping or hurting me? And number 4, what is a more helpful way to think about this that will help me to move towards my goal? So that was tool number 1. Tool number 2, spatial distancing. Get yourself out of situation, float away and look at this situation while in it as a movie, so you can have less emotionally driven, regretful responses and more constructive ones. Number 3, temporal distancing. Look at the situation from, let's say, 1 year, 5 years, and ask yourself what I would be proud of in this situation if I were to look at it from a perspective year from now, 5 years, etc. Number 4, distancing self-talk. What would you advise your friend to do in the same situation? Or if an alien would occupy your body, what that alien would do? Number 5, reappraisal, or changing the way you think about the situation to think better and in a more, again, helpful way that leads you towards better outcomes. And number 6, visualization in a helpful kind of way, not doom and gloom kind of way. I hope this podcast episode was very useful. And my suggestion to you, well, first, do rate, review this podcast episode if you find this useful. It really, really helps us to reach more people and to get through the noise. And with all the ads, AIs, and clickbaits, here we are on a mission to grow together in a not noisy kind of way, but in a very meaningful kind of way. We don't run ads, etc. So please, guys, if you find value, share and learn with other people with this podcast as your guide. So that's that. But speaking of putting all of this into practice, I suggest you take one tool per week, or as we do in coaching, every 2 weeks. So we focus on one practice. So take one tool and ask yourself, how am I going to practice it in which specific situations? And then just put it into practice as much as possible. Practice makes better. So one thing at a time, and then put it into practice until you can say, yeah, that's now how I deal with things. That's my new habitual response. And then take the next one and re-listen to this podcast from time to time to get the next one and to practice, to get better and to create the situations where you're proud of your emotional responses and not regretful of them. So that's how you put things into practice and get better. Besides that, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And till next time, keep changing, keep improving, keep growing.